So, the first question is, what's your name, title, and organization of Professional Interview?
I'm John Hatle. I'm a professor of biology at the University of North Florida.
And, alright, how would you describe a typical day/week on the job?
So it varies a little bit day to day, but not so much week to week. So some days are consumed with teaching, and teaching is only probably about a third of the work is in the classroom, and at least 2/3 of it is, preparing materials, preparing lectures, especially if it's the first time you taught a class. So a lot of the work is in your office, getting ready for students, and getting ready for meeting with the students, and then Fridays are often consumed with meeting with faculty and planning the curriculum in the department and things like that. And then the other aspect of my job is doing research, and that involves meeting with my research students. But also most of that is sitting at my computer writing reports of what we've done, analyzing data. So most of it is sitting at the computer, even though it's supposed to be studying things for a living.
How did you get into this field?
I just really enjoyed college and realized that I wanted to continue doing those kinds of things, and this is what you end up doing when you want to keep going to school, basically.
Which majors are most successful with securing employment in this field?
Well, to be a biology professor, you got to have a biology degree, obviously. So.
What are the most satisfying aspects of your job?
So the most satisfying aspects of my job are working individually or in small groups with students, whether that's somebody from a class that I'm teaching comes in and meets with me during office hours, or working with my research students. That's necessarily in smaller groups. So it's usually in the research end, just because that's more often smaller groups than oftentimes, I teach a couple of classes that usually are about 100 students each. So it's helping students, get over a hurdle and do something that they haven't done before, or doing it with them if it's in the research realm, because in research it's going to be something I haven't done before as well, just like them. So.
How often do students come to your office hours?
Rarely at the beginning of the semester, more frequently at the end of the semester. I would say the first month of the semester, only a handful of students will come, and then end of the semester, I'll get maybe 5 to 10 students a week. Probably more like 5 a week. So.
Okay. What frustrations or drawbacks do you experience in this position?
It is frustrating having some of what we do is determined by the administration of the university, the president, and the provost. Provost is the chief academic officer, and they're driven by different things than we are. They're driven by trying to get students to graduate as quickly and as cheaply as possible. I'm much more interested in working with students in small groups, and they're much more interested in getting a large number of students out, getting them out quickly. Often they're under pressure, because the university's funding often is based on how many students graduate, how long it takes them to graduate. So they're under pressure from the state government to try to get students out cheaply, and I'm much more interested in getting out students who have had a quality experience than have just gotten through it.
Yeah.
So that's probably the main frustration in the job.
Do you have any frustrations with students in general, asking certain questions or doing certain things?
Not too often. I mean, once in a while you'll get a student who is, either disruptive in class just by what they're doing, or disruptive in class because they're asking way too many questions. But usually at the college level, that's not much of a problem. And also, I teach 2 big sophomore level classes, but not freshman classes. So I get them when they've had a year of college to kind of adjust to what college is. And by
Yeah.
then that's not usually a problem. I mean, there are always issues. Sometimes students will plagiarize or things like that.
Yeah.
And that can be frustrating, but student disruptions in class don't tend to be a problem.
Okay. How often do you travel and for how long?
I travel once or twice a year for work, and usually for 3 or 4 days at a time. So there's an annual conference that I go to every year, and that's to take students and present our research that we've done in the past year. And then there's a couple other conferences that I go to every other year or something like that, just depending on when I'm available and when I have something to present. So I don't travel a whole lot for this job.
Understandable. What percentage of time is spent utilizing computers?
Most of it. Yep. So, in fact, I've had to work to find ways to not be seated here too long. Like I have a podium so I can stand up and do work there. Run errands around campus, just to get myself moving. So a lot of it is at the computer.
How much time is it spent with interacting with people?
Probably a quarter or a third in meetings and in teaching classes.
And how much of it is spent writing reports?
So a lot of the time at the desk is writing reports. Whether it's writing stuff, whether it's preparing an exam or writing a research report, or and there's all kinds of different levels of research reports. It takes a long time to work up to writing a final actual submittable paper. So.
Okay. How much contact do you have with people outside of your organization?
Not much for the teaching aspect of my job, but quite a bit for the research aspect of my job. So almost all my research is via collaborations with faculty from other universities.
Okay.
And so at certain times I'll be in contact with them every day for a few weeks, and then we'll be independently working on stuff and get back together a month later or something, and then so research is definitely collaborative outside the university. The teaching really does not require that much at all.
Okay. Do you ever, cause I also know that the 2 years ago, because I had Dr. Gibson for my GB3 before I had you. Have you ever consulted with her with anything?
Yeah. So one of the things that we do regularly is there's a committee for GB1 instructors, a committee of GB2 instructors, and a committee of GB3 instructors. And depending on the year and depending on how much we're changing things, we could have a handful of meetings at the beginning of the year to try to make sure we're on the same page. Or if we're not changing things much, we may not actually meet formally at all, but we would definitely meet informally and talk about, how are you covering this topic? How much depth do you spend on this? What did you ask in the exam? How did they do in the exams? Things like that. So it's usually most of that is not a formally scheduled meeting, but we're definitely in touch about those things.
Okay.
Yeah. And especially with the lab instructors too, because there's a whole team of lab instructors, right? So that when you're in a class like GB3, if there's 100 students in a lecture, there's going to be 4 separate lab sections, and they're almost certainly not taught by the same individuals. So we have a weekly meeting every Friday where we get together for a half hour and just make sure that we're all on the same page. And then anybody who's new to teaching that class would get trained in by one of the lab instructors on how to teach the lesson of the next week.
Do you, so if it's since you're the lecture teacher, are you the lecture teacher for GB3 this year?
Actually, I'm not doing GB3 this year. I'm doing human anatomy physiology too. But.
Oh, really? Will you be doing that next semester?
No, I'm doing environmental physiology next semester. So.
Because I'm taking APT next year.
Okay.
Because I'm taking with Professor
Amatuli as one. Yeah, so you probably have Jill Butler in the spring, but I'm not sure.
Okay. But since you're the lecturer, say for any certain class, do you instruct the TAs what to go over and base their
the
labs off of?
So for every class that has multiple lab sections, there's a lab coordinator, and that's one of the lab instructors who's been around a long time and taught that class several times. And it's their job to do all the setup and make sure everything is set up for the lab. It's also their job to train any people who are new teaching the lab how to teach that lab. And usually there's graduate students in the freshman and sophomore classes. There'll be graduate students teaching some of the lab sections. So it's their responsibility to do that. As the lecture professor in the class, it's my job to sort of oversee it all and help develop new lab exercises if that needs to be done. Some quality control if I think things need to be changed. But it's not my job to train the people to do it or to do the setup.
Okay. How does your career affect your lifestyle? Like the amount of time you work, the time of free time, travel, outside interests?
So one advantage of being a college professor is the schedule is very flexible. It doesn't mean that it's light. It does take a lot of time to do the job right, but it's very flexible. I personally don't take advantage of that so much. I sort of just prefer to work sort of a 9-to-5 thing. And I have 2 elementary school kids at home, and so I do that in part because then I'm home when they're home more, after in the evenings and then the weekends. It definitely to do this job as I wanted to do it, because I really enjoy the research part, and that sort of is on. Sometimes during the year feels like it's on top of everything else, and to keep that going, I definitely have work some in the evenings after my kids go to bed a couple times a week, or I typically come in on the weekends for a handful of hours. So it definitely does take some time away from my family, but I also don't feel like it that I never see my kids or anything like that. It doesn't. I haven't let it get to that point, and I don't feel like it's that demanding.
Okay.
So.
What educational degrees, licenses, or other credentials are required for entry and advancement in your kind of work?
So you need a PhD in biology, and that usually takes about 8 years after your undergraduate degree. Usually, most people will do a master's degree that takes 2 or 3 years, and then a PhD, which takes 4 or 5 years. And then very rarely does somebody get a job as a faculty member right after that. They do a postdoc after that, which is sort of like an internship, and that can last anywhere from 3 to 5 years. So people typically get the sort of entry-level job as an assistant professor, where you first get a job as a faculty member of the institution. They usually get that in their mid-30s. So you basically spend your 20s and early 30s just continuing to train yourself. It takes about 10 years of training after college to get a job like this.
Gotcha.
So I enjoyed that period. One disadvantage of it is you don't get paid. You get paid like a trainee, so you get paid $15,000 to $20,000 as a graduate student a year, and then as a postdoc you might get paid $30,000 now.
And is it?
And so it's not, it sets you behind in saving for retirement, and all kinds of saving for a house, all kinds of stuff like that.
Is it super time consuming to where you couldn't even get a second
job?
Yeah.
It would be unusual to get a second job because you want to put your time into your primary position. So, the places that I was a postdoc and PhD student were not especially prestigious, and I ended up at University of North Florida, which is a good university, but it's not elite.
Yeah.
And so I felt like the time that I put in, I was able to have I worked hard, but I was able to have a normal life outside of it. If you are a postdoc down the street at the Mayo Clinic and trying to get a job at UF or Harvard or someplace like that, those people probably don't have very normal lives. They probably work 80 hours a week and don't do much outside of work. So it kind of depends on what level you're at and what you're shooting for.
Okay. What skills or personal characteristics, traits, values do you believe are necessary or helpful for success and satisfaction in this occupation?
I think the most important thing is just a genuine curiosity and enjoyment of the topic. Because you can be spending your days thinking about all kinds of different types of biology, and if you don't find it fascinating, it's not the right position for you. You also have to have decent people skills, especially if you're in a job that requires teaching, because if you are a misanthrope and just don't enjoy people, then teaching is not the right job choice for you at all. And you also have to, work collaboratively with your colleagues in developing classes and curriculum and stuff like that. But really, the most important thing is just a passion for the topic and a focus to keep learning more and more about biology, as opposed to resting in your laurels. Because that's both good teaching and good research are going to come from that passion and constantly trying to dig deeper and deeper into it.
Yeah. So I was talking about that with Professor too, how it's like, you as a student, it's very easy to pick up on how a professor loves his or her job and how like they enjoy, like with you, how you'd make your jokes in class and like we laugh, or like you'd give us supplemental information that's not necessary for us, but like it's like something that we kind of might want to be interested in, or something that's related to the course.
Yeah, and it shows the instructor's passion about it. Yeah,
which is like very helpful, because as a student, when you see like, okay, this professor's like into his job, like he won't be like kind of a mean professor where if you want to ask a question, or like you're curious about something, like you feel comfortable going to that professor.
Yeah. Well, you live and eat and breathe biology when you're at work if you're a biologist, so it's better like it.
That's a great trait for you. I really appreciate it. What are the trade professional groups to which you belong to, and what do you find most beneficial to your work?
So there are trade groups or societies, both for teaching and for research. The ones for teaching I have not found very helpful over the years, but the one that I'm most active in for research is called the Society for Integrative Comparative Biology. And basically that society is composed of faculty members at schools around the United States that study how animals work, whether it's and not with medical approaches. So there's lots and lots of medical research. Those are huge meetings, very expensive meetings to attend. The one I attend is for people that aren't directly applying their research to medicine, but just trying to figure out how animals work, whether it's marine animals and how they, what are the functional aspects of their swimming, or what controls how animals grow in the desert, very dry environment, or under limited food, things like that. And that meeting has also got a real reputation as being so-called very student-friendly, and that is that graduate students, even undergraduates, can present their research there, and other people that are there are going to be very accepting of that and understand, okay, this person is just starting out in the field. I'll ask questions that are appropriate for their level. I'm not going to try to embarrass them, which at a high, high intensity medical meeting, that definitely happens. If somebody's not prepared, somebody will ask questions that will really embarrass them, because they're not so interested in training the students. They're interested in pushing the research agenda. So when you asked earlier if I travel each year, going to that meeting, taking usually a couple of students from UNF and presenting the work that we've done over the last year, and then seeing work that others have done, is the trip that I make most years.
Okay. How do people usually learn about the job opening in your field?
Well, the specific job opening is advertised in, there's a couple of trade journals that hire. Chronicle for Higher Education is the one where most of the job ads are posted. But you're training for some job as a professor at a university all the way through your PhD and your postdoc, and you just don't know which particular institutions will have a job opening when you sort of become ready to apply. So you're training for a certain type of job, a physiology professor, for example, like I am, and then the years that you think you're ready and a marketable candidate, then you search the Chronicle of Higher Education and other trade journals and find out who's got openings in that specific. But it is the kind of thing where it's such a narrow, specific job that you're unlikely to find a job in a certain area. Like if you say you want to stay in Jacksonville or just even the North Florida region, it's really difficult to, you don't find many people who succeed in getting a faculty job in a small location like that. You pretty much have to just be willing to look nationally and move to wherever the job is. If you go up and down the hallway here, you can tell you where everybody's from, and I don't think there's anybody from Florida that's in a tenure track faculty, not on this floor at least.
Wow.
So it's pretty typical.
Did you travel all around? Did you go from place to place?
For interviewing for jobs, I interviewed at 10 different jobs, and we went from Utah to New Jersey to Florida to West Virginia, Illinois, all over.
Yeah. Where'd you go to school?
Yeah, so I did my undergraduate work at Luther College in Iowa, a small college near where I grew up. I did my PhD at the University of Louisiana, and then I did my postdoc at Illinois State University.
Okay. What do you wish you had known about this career field before you entered it?
That's tough. I guess it would have been nice to know that it isn't as much working with people as I thought it would be. You think you're going to be a teacher, you're going to interact with people, but even just in the teaching aspect of my job, over half of that is by myself at a computer or grading papers or reading some background material or something like that. So, and I enjoy learning new stuff about biology, but even the teaching aspect of my job, which is 70 or 75% of my job, so it's the majority, but it's not all of my job, is pretty much just me by myself studying something, so it's not an extremely social job.
Are there any books or periodicals that you would recommend?
Most of what you learn about, like in training and how to be a biology professor is just from your mentors showing you and telling you. So there wasn't like one book like how to be a biology professor or anything like that. I've never. And even there are trade journals, like the Chronicle of Higher Education is always writing about, there's articles about issues of being a faculty member and the politics of campus life and stuff like that. But there's not like some magazine out there that's like, here's what you really should do when you start a new job.
Yeah.
You just hear that from other people and get counseled by mentors, essentially.
So how important is networking, would you say?
It can be really important because you are, as a faculty member, you're always evaluating your peers, and your peers always evaluate you. When you go for promotion or your annual reviews. So interacting with people, even though a lot of the job is at your computer, it's essential to kind of understand, to talk to your peers and find out what they deem as important. Now that I've been around a while, I'm one of the more senior members of the department, so I'm often reviewing junior colleagues when they go for promotion, and they need to know, what I'll be looking for and what kind of accomplishments I'll be looking for, and other people on the committee that I would serve on, what they'll be looking for, because it'll be a group of us reviewing junior colleagues. So that kind of networking is very important, so you know how to allocate your time.
So when you were, throughout this career field, did you ever do any, shadowing, looking over other people's shoulders?
So it's not actually shadowing, but when you do your PhD, you have one advisor that you spend, that supervises you every step of the way. When you're a postdoc, you have a postdoc advisor who you work in that person's lab that they've established, and they guide you. You've got to work independently to some degree, but they're, monitoring your work all the time. So it's a very close relationship in both the PhD and the postdoc period, and so that's why there's not really a trade journal that you read. Your advisor needs to be, if they're training you properly, they need to be informing you about what kind of experiences you should have, what kind of accomplishments you want to have to be able to get the kind of job you're seeking.
Okay. What kind of entry-level jobs are available within organizations like this?
So if we're talking about faculty level, entry-level jobs, they don't come up very often. Right now, our department is searching for 3 new faculty members for next year, and that's unusual. Searching for 1 a year would be average. So we have with 3 people leave the department, 1 retiree, 1 moved up, and 1 left the university. And so we're replacing 3 people, and that's pretty unusual. But those are each in specific areas of biology, and only people trained in those specific areas of biology would have a chance.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. What are your personal future career plans?
So my personal career plans are to stay a faculty member, not go into being a chair or an administrator. I'm not interested in doing that, and just continue teaching and doing research. I've sort of gotten to the level that I want to be, and now it's just a matter of continuing to do that. Constantly learning new things to stay there, but that's what I want to do. So I've gotten to the point where I've been working to get to for a long time, and just hope to stay there. Which it's not easy. You can't. It's not just a matter of coasting. You gotta keep working to stay there.
Do you ever feel like your passion will ever go away for this?
So my passion for certain aspects of what I do goes away, but then there's always something else that you'll find interesting. That you can. And one thing about being a faculty member is it's a relatively flexible job. Like you can determine to a great extent exactly how you teach something, and to some extent what you teach depending on the class and your research. There's nobody ever telling you that you have to do research on a particular topic when you're at a university. You can do it on anything within biology, and so I don't think I'll ever get to a point where there won't be anything in biology that will be interesting to me.
Yeah. Then the last question is, what kind of special advice would you give a young person entering this field?
Only do it if you absolutely love your biology classes and just have a passion of curiosity and finding out more. Because it's not, because of the whole training period that I told you, that it takes to your age 35 to get a quote real job, and we get paid reasonably well when we get there, but not anywhere where you're going to get rich.
Yeah.
It's just not worth it to go into, because you spend 5 years making $15,000 working 60 hours a week. To get somewhere, you shouldn't be doing that unless it's something that you really know you're passionate about. So.
Yeah. And that was the last question. So
okay.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Happy to help.